There's so much to do in private practice and so many resources and trainings and things like that to focus on that we've brought it all together for you for a totally free event starting March 11th and going till March 14th. Level Up Week 2024 is coming up, and I want you to save that date. We have some amazing panels we're planning where we're bringing together people that have started a private practice, people that have started a group practice, and people that are rocking out mega group practices. Also, we're going to have some amazing keynotes and some trainings that are on very practical things. There's no need for you to bounce between Facebook groups wondering, is this advice good? What should I do next? I don't even know of the 50 things that I need to be working on what I should do first. Instead, come to Level Up Week. It's totally free. You can be on the early bird list over at practiceofthepractice.com/level up to get all the early notifications for when we open up registration. So again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/level up. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, session number 958. I'm Joe Sanok, your host, and welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast. I hope you are doing awesome today. This podcast is all about that moment you think to yourself, I want to start a solo counseling practice, all the way through a thriving group practice that maybe you want to sell, or maybe even want to go into other specialties outside of your practice and do consulting or e-courses or podcasts. We cover everything on that spectrum of the clinician's journey. So 2-3 times a week, we're doing these podcasts, talking with people, doing trainings for you, helping you just learn different ways of thinking about this. And I'm so excited today. We have Dr. Andrea Niles, who is a clinical psychologist and founder of Prospera Mental Health and Wellness. She's studied anxiety and depression treatments and maternal mental health for 17 years and is passionate about making high-quality mental health care widely accessible and affordable to everyone. Prospera is a mental health platform designed specifically for moms. Prospera provides weekly one-on-one sessions with prenatal certified mental health coaches and a library of digital tools specifically designed to support moms in mental health. Andrea, welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Joe. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Well, let's start with, what were you doing mental health wise before Prospera, or was this your plan right from the beginning?
Yeah, so I actually was more on the academia track. So, publishing lots of papers, working in different research labs. And so I was kind of on that path to become a faculty member in clinical psychology. But I just felt like that work wasn't reaching as many people as I wanted it to. I wanted to kind of take the science out of the ivory tower and really get it into the hands of the people who really need it. And so I left academia and I worked for a few years for a startup in digital mental health, and we were creating an app for anxiety and depression. I learned a huge amount about kind of the tech, the tech world and industry and business. And then after that, that's when I founded Prospera.
I love that. Now, Prospera, what were some of the first things that you started? So you have this vision for things, and oftentimes, clinicians were not always trained in business, marketing, technology. It sounds like you had a great first job, to be able to teach you some of that stuff. But was it a business plan? Was it you made the logo first? You just outsourced a bunch of it to other people? What did that initial startup look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I knew what kind of product and service I wanted to provide, and so that's kind of where it started. And then I had to kind of figure out, okay, what does it look like to actually start a business that will allow me to then deliver this product? And so for me, it definitely started with a product, which is basically making evidence-based mental health care more widely accessible and more affordable to people. So that was what I knew I wanted to do. And then from there, I had to figure out, how do you create a company and how do you create a website and how do you get a logo and, all of those things that kind of surround it.
And so as you were going through that process, like why for you was like prenatal, perinatal mental health care, why was that important to you?
So, and I actually Prospera actually didn't start in perinatal mental health. We kind of moved into that a little bit later, and so part of that was actually kind of a business decision, as well as what my studying and understanding more about marketing. But it's also an area that is near and dear to my heart, and it was a really it made a lot of sense for us to go in that direction. So I'm a mom. I have two children, and I went through various challenges throughout my pregnancies and postpartum, and I personally looked for mental health support and mental health care during that time. And even knowing everything I know, I struggled to find something. I just went online and searched on Google, and I paid a lot for it. And so all the problems that I knew existed, I faced personally, specifically in that perinatal period. And so I felt like it's really critical for moms to have easy access to mental health support, so that they don't have to spend so much energy and effort finding when they're already so overwhelmed.
Yeah. Now, if every clinician that we're listening right now, they really understood what moms are struggling with, dealing with, what are the things that we don't see in the DSM that we don't typically know that really you would love for clinicians to kind of have a radar for?
Yeah, this is a great question. So I think a lot of people are aware of postpartum depression. And so that's kind of the first thing that people think about when they think of perinatal mental health. However, there are so many other issues that moms are facing. So postpartum anxiety is actually more common than postpartum depression. Um, and then a lot of moms that we see a lot of really interesting themes. Intrusive thoughts are very common among moms postpartum. We have a lot of moms experiencing traumatic birth experiences, as well as postpartum rage. And so I think it's important for clinicians, when if you're working with a mom, just knowing that there are very very specific things that are unique to motherhood, that it's important to make sure that you have that training and expertise to be able to support moms, because I think sometimes you could go in the wrong direction with some of those things.
What for training and expertise, like where should people start in regards to what is baseline if you're working with new mothers that everyone should be trained in?
Well, so actually Postpartum Support International is a incredible organization, and they actually put on tons of trainings, and they actually have a certification that you can go through, and then you can actually get certified in this sort of perinatal um, area of mental health support. And so if that's something that a clinician is interested in, they want to support moms, and I would definitely recommend getting that certification, just to make sure you have this sort of baseline understanding, especially if you haven't been through it yourself.
Yeah. So then you have your specialty, you start building the website, and how do you start attracting coaches and attracting moms?
Yeah. In terms of coaches, that was kind of the easier side. Having been in academia, I had a pretty large network of people who, of faculty and other clinicians who had connections to um, people who were in training and were interested in kind of getting this type of experience and getting the type of training through our internal certification program. So mostly people who are on the path to going to graduate school or currently in graduate school, and they were really excited at the opportunity to work as a coach for us. And so that side of it was and has continued to be relatively easy. But the challenge on the other side is actually finding clients, and so having to figure out how we were going to do that, where we were going to find them, how we were going to market. That was, I would say, the biggest challenge starting out.
Mm. Now, I'm sure it was a big decision to think through, are we going to train coaches? Are we going to hire clinical therapists? Like, walk me through that thought process.
Yeah, I would say it wasn't a big decision, because I knew I wanted to do something that was a little bit different. So I didn't want to just create another telehealth platform. There's lots of those out there. Um, I wanted to do something that would allow greater access to evidence-based treatments, as well as reducing the cost, allowing us to provide the care across the United States. And so coaches is a way to do that. And that's really based on a lot of the science that shows that they're often called paraprofessionals. So people who are not necessarily licensed, but you bring them on and you train them and certify them, and then they work alongside technology and digital tools to deliver care, and they can provide incredible care and deliver results that are comparable with licensed therapists. So I knew I always wanted to go in that direction.
Hmm. Now, how do you differentiate between what, say, your coaches are doing and where that boundary is to like mental health professionals?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we thought a lot about the criteria that we would use to say, someone is sort of at the level where they can work with a coach as opposed to a licensed therapist. And so we do if somebody has a history of something like postpartum psychosis, bipolar disorder, or schizophrenia, those more severe mental illnesses, we do refer them out. Also, if they have active suicidality, so some thoughts of suicide with plan or intent, we also refer them out to licensed mental health professionals. And then there are other situations too, which we train our coaches on, and we support them in kind of figuring out whether someone is more appropriate to see a licensed mental health professional as opposed to a coach.
Mm-hmm. Going in network with insurance can be tough. I know when I took insurance, there were long wait times and it was so confusing. Filing all the right paperwork is time consuming and tedious, and even after you're done, it can take months to get credentialed and start seeing clients. That's why Alma makes it easy and financially rewarding to accept insurance. When you join their insurance program, you can get credentialed within 45 days and access enhanced reimbursement rates with major payers. They also handle all of the paperwork from eligibility checks to claims submissions and guarantee payment within 2 weeks of each appointment. Once you've joined Alma's insurance program, you can see clients in your state of licensure, regardless of where you're working from. It's amazing to know that you can be fully online. Learn more about building a thriving practice with Alma at helloalma.com/Joe. That's hello, ALMA.com/Joe to get started. There's so much to do in private practice and so many resources and trainings and things like that to focus on that we've brought it all together for you for a totally free event starting March 11th and going till March 14th. Level Up Week 2024 is coming up, and I want you to save that date. We have some amazing panels we're planning where we're bringing together people that have started a private practice, people that have started a group practice, and people that are rocking out mega group practices. Also, we're going to have some amazing keynotes and some trainings that are on very practical things. There's no need for you to bounce between Facebook groups wondering, is this advice good? What should I do next? I don't even know of the 50 things that I need to be working on what I should do first. Instead, come to Level Up Week. It's totally free. You can be on the early bird list over at practiceofthepractice.com/level up to get all the early notifications for when we open up registration. So again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/level up. And how does it look different, what, say, the coaches are doing than what a typical therapist would do?
So one thing that we, that's very clear is that we don't diagnose, and we're not providing treatment. And so, licensed therapists are trained to be able to do that and provide sort of medical care, a diagnosis, and treatment. So we try to be very clear that we don't provide that. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is that the coaches are pretty constrained, and this is by design, by our design. That they're pretty constrained in what they are doing. So they follow manualized protocol that really focuses on the basic tenets of cognitive behavioral therapy techniques. And then they really rely heavily on our tools library. So it's not 100% on them to sort of deliver CBT, which they're not really fully trained to do, but they can explain the CBT concepts, and then they assign activities that are designed by licensed clinicians. And so it's that combination of this sort of support that they're providing alongside our technology, that kind of constraints of the manual that might set them apart from a therapist who's much more free to sort of do what they feel is most helpful.
Yeah, so it sounds like on one side there's sort of the psychoeducational that's created by licensed therapists, and then there's more of a support, but support with a framework that the paraprofessionals are kind of walking through.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not just providing a supportive listening ear either. So we wanted to make sure that they were actually helping the clients learn these coping skills, which are so effective from CBT. So it's that combination of those supportive skills and active listening skills with the CBT kind of basic concepts.
Yeah. Now, what's the user experience like? So, a mom reaches out. Walk me through kind of what they're kind of going through when they're onboarded.
Yeah, so I really wanted to make the experience so easy. So with a typical, I guess the typical approach with therapists is you call them, you usually leave a message, and then they call you back, and then you kind of maybe play phone tag, or it's an email exchange, and then you have to schedule maybe a initial phone consult, and that takes a while to get scheduled, and so this very sort of slow, laborious process. And so I really wanted to streamline that. So we have booking calendar on our website for phone consults. So you just go to the website, you book that. You can book it literally within hours of right now if you wanted to. You have that 30-minute free phone consult, and then from there, the client just can subscribe to the service, sign up for, we have a trial, a 2-week trial. So they sign up for that and get them scheduled with a coach, and they could come in and see a coach literally the next day. And so we try to make it really fast and really simple.
Wow. So, so as you think about kind of your platform and lessons you've learned from that, if there's someone that was looking at a specialty or offering something that's traditionally been outside of just the private practice space, what advice do you have in regards to market research, in regards to like understanding what works, what doesn't work? Like, just what would you suggest they do in, say, the first 3 to 6 months of their idea?
Well, I think what I learned as we started was how important it was to focus on a specific niche, so that you can actually kind of communicate to somebody in particular. And then from there, really understand that audience. And so at this point, I don't provide any of the care, but I have talked to probably at least 400 moms, and so I know very well how they talk about the problems that they have, the language that they use. What are their biggest pain points, and so that has helped me immensely in writing content for the website and figuring out what kinds of free information we want to provide to the moms, and how we think about the services that we provide. And so I would say understanding your target audience is really, really critical.
Mm. So as people build this, as you look kind of to the future, like what things are you adding to the platform? How are you thinking through? Something we talk about often is the lean manufacturing plan, do, check, adjust. It's like, what are you checking on a regular basis? How are you adjusting? So you've launched it, it's going well. Like, what are the tweaks now?
Yeah. So one of the strengths that I brought from academia, and then I also learned from my previous role, was basically tracking data. And so we are tracking, and from a business standpoint, we're tracking all of the critical metrics that will allow us to survive and continue going. And then we're looking at those metrics and then trying to understand whether they can be improved. Um, Looking at feedback from our clients, and things like that, to try to figure out, are there ways that we can make those metrics work better for us. And then from there, we do experiments. So we try different things. We might do A/B tests, or just sort of deploy a change or modification based on feedback, and then we check the numbers and see what it's doing. And so I think yeah, a really, really critical piece to make sure that we're really providing the best service, and then we can continue to try to improve and really meet the demands of our audience.
Hmm. Now, if you were to take your most successful 20% of users of the platform, um, what are some things that they learned that you would really want clinicians to know? So you kind of at the beginning covered a few of those things that you'd want folks to know. I'd love for you to dig in a little bit more and almost give a quick kind of prenatal, postnatal masterclass on, here's some techniques that can really work. And obviously, sending people to certification, sending people to deeper courses is what we really want to recommend if people want to dig into this niche. But what are some skills that you would really want therapists to develop, if they say just started by listening to this podcast episode?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I mean, maybe this is true of every client, but maybe it's particularly true of moms, and we really talk about this a lot with our coaches, is to try to avoid suggesting and sort of advising and sort of giving people, solutions to the challenges that they're facing, because when it comes to motherhood in particular, the challenges of one mom can be extremely different from the challenges of another. And then, particularly if you don't have kids yourself, you just can't really fully understand what the context is that that mom is working in. What are the constraints on her time and her energy and her, ability to just sort of do some basic things that for someone without a kid, they wouldn't think twice about. And so really focusing on reflective listening, open questions, and sort of evoking, um, ideas for change and how to make changes from the client, and also just sort of checking in as well. Like, we're talking about, okay, I'm gonna have you take a look at your thoughts over this next week. How does that sound? Does that feel manageable? And making sure that you're always sort of assessing how what you're saying is landing, with the mom, because we've had lots and lots of moms who come in and say that that therapist didn't understand me. They suggested X, Y, and Z. They clearly didn't get it. And so you have to start from a place of really understanding, and listening and evoking and not suggesting.
Mm. Now, if someone is seeing a mom in therapy and wants to add Prospera as like an additional referral or something, like tell us who would be great referrals to have Prospera be like something in addition to therapy.
Yeah. So I would say, I mean, it could work in addition to therapy. So if you're a therapist who's providing something that's very, very supportive, and not providing any kind of CBT skills, but that mom is looking for, they want something that's a little bit more actionable, you could certainly kind of add Prospera on top of that. Or if you're working with a mom on things that are not necessarily related to motherhood. So we do have moms sometimes who have a therapist they're working on kind of, past traumatic experiences, but they want to talk to someone about the things that are affecting them right now in terms of their postpartum experience. Then we can kind of work alongside existing therapy. But I think it's also a good option for, someone who maybe can't afford private practice. So our cost is about $39 per session. And so if you
Mm.
have, people who are coming to you and you want to, have a referral option for them because they can't afford the private practice cost or something like that, then we could be a good option in that case as well.
Mm. The last question I always ask is, if every private practitioner in the world were listening right now, what would you want them to know?
So I guess I'll maybe target this more towards people who are maybe in the process of beginning or sort of building or trying to build a private practice. So more towards the beginning. Um, and I'll just say that it is really hard to figure out, how to build that caseload and how to reach the clients that you want to reach. And so if you're in that phase and you're struggling with that, just know that it is a, universal experience, that this is a real challenge to figure out. And, it's not that you're doing anything wrong. You have to keep going, you have to keep trying, keep learning. And it'll take a lot of time to actually figure out how to fill your practice, and I think that's normal and very, very hard.
Mm. Well, if people want to connect with you, if they want to connect with the platform, where's the best place to send them?
Um, so yeah, I have my Instagram. I reply to messages there. Maybe that's the best place. So my Instagram handle is Dr. Andrea Niles. I talk a lot about maternal mental health there. Feel free to send me a DM. And you can also email our platform. We have a support email, which is support@prosperamhw.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the Practice of the Practice podcast.
All right. Thanks, Joe.
I just love the creativity of people. To think about these needs that are out in the world. 2 episodes ago, we talked with Paul from Open Path Collective, and to just see a problem in the world and say, I'm not just going to sit around and let somebody else solve this. To me, it's so fulfilling to have started Practice of the Practice over 10 years ago. And to be at almost episode 1000, to just have talked to people, to provide just access to free information and maybe deeper discussions than we were having before this, to know that I was a part of making things better for private practitioners. And you can do that too. There are so many ways that you can go enact what we're talking about today, whether that's on your own, watching a bunch of YouTube things to learn, or joining a community. There's lots of ways that you can enact the big ideas that you have. We could not do the show without our amazing sponsors. And today we have Alma as one of our sponsors. Your private practice can be really challenging, navigating insurance, the business side of things. Alma makes it so much easier. You can get credentialed within 45 days, get enhanced reimbursement rates with major players, and they also handle all the paperwork. If you want to learn more about building a thriving private practice with Alma, head on over to helloalma.com/Joe. That's hello, ALMA.com/Joe to get started. Also, Level Up Week is right around the corner. So I want you to save the date for March 11th through 14th. We are going to have tons of amazing webinars all about leveling up, helping you if you're just getting started, if you're growing a group practice and just hiring your first person, or if you already have a group practice. We have a bunch of really awesome webinars coming up. So save those dates, March 11th through 14th. Those details will be over at practiceofthepractice.com/level up. Thank you so much for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.